All right, Shai. So obviously, exciting time in Toronto Blue Jays land. Coming down, big race here: Seattle, Baltimore, Tampa. What do you think about just the outlook of where this team is right now, and how exciting is this race for the Toronto fans right now?
Well, this is certainly a season-defining stretch that they've been in, and this road trip with the 4-game series in Baltimore was an important one, and for them to go 3-1 in that series, it was first time in a while they built in a little bit of separation for themselves in the standings, and they've been able to maintain that momentum from that in this series here in Texas, and it's an important one casting forward because they've got 8 tough days in a row. They've got 5 games in 4 days against the Rays, 3 more against the Orioles, and that stretch will really define what the end of the season looks like for them. They can really ensconce themselves in a playoff spot and give themselves a chance to set themselves up optimally for the postseason, or they could maybe fall back to the pack a little bit and end up in a dogfight right to the finish line. So the Jays have, to this point, really risen to the moment, but the work in a lot of ways really hinges on what happens next week.
And Jordan Romano, what can you tell me about this young man and the impact he's had his first year as the full-time closer? And he's been really impressive out there, hasn't he?
I mean, his season is up there among the greatest seasons ever by a Blue Jays closer, and he's been integral to this team. You think about some of the inconsistencies in spots where they maybe didn't have a stability in the bullpen earlier parts of the season, and he's just been a rock all throughout them and all throughout the year. And then you look at the way he's really been used over the past 6-7 weeks, where he started to get more multiple inning appearances or going out for more than three outs. That's really given the Blue Jays a lot of flexibility with how they manage their leverage relief. And he's really been remarkably consistent in a role that can chew people up. He's got a really good demeanor for it. He's really come to understand what kind of thought process he needs out on the mound. He's evolved at times too. He's done different things with his slider. He's throwing different versions of it now, where he's got a bit of a softer one that he may use for a strike or early contact early in the count, and then he's got the wipeout harder one that he throws later. So he's really continued to develop, and that's what's allowed him to have the type of season he's having.
Absolutely. And Bo Bichette, he's definitely, he's a superstar, I would say, at this point. And what have you just made of his development?
I think in Toronto and among Blue Jay fans, he was definitely viewed as, that complimentary cornerstone to Vladimir Guerrero Jr. But I think people with him tend to forget how hard it is to be a young shortstop in the big leagues, and just the amount of toll, both physical and mental, playing up the middle, besides catcher, the most important field in a defensive position in the field, how much toll that can be. And he's handled that. He's been a good offensive player. He had a tremendous season in 21, and he grinded for significant periods this season. And then you see how he's risen to the moment here in September, just having a ridiculously productive stretch here of baseball, actually dating back to the end of August if you really dig into the numbers. So he's still growing, he's still learning, he's still not the player that he's going to be, and he's already a really remarkable player right now.
For sure. And I know you've covered baseball a long time. Does it ever get old covering Vlad? And what can you say about him that hasn't been said already, I guess?
Well, it definitely does not get old. I was fortunate. I started, when I first started covering baseball, the Blue Jays had Carlos Delgado and Roy Halladay, and that's true greatness, getting to cover that and see it on a daily basis. And then it went to Jose Bautista and Edwin Encarnacion, and now it's Guerrero and Bo Bichette. And these are generational talents. These are generational players who come up at a remarkably young age and are able to be productive, have essentially a franchise placed on their shoulders, and are told to carry it, and have really done so. So Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is an incredible player. He's the type of talent that even when he's got 850 OPS or whatever it is, everyone's like, what's wrong with him? That's how good he is. So, if this is Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s floor, you've got a pretty special player. his 2021 was certainly a glimpse of what the ceiling could be, and it's really a lot of fun to watch.
Right on. And I got to ask you, what was it like to cover Roy Halladay? That's a legend right there.
Yeah, I mean, he was really interesting because he was about as regimented a player as you could encounter, and he was often very much had his guards up or blinders on, and that was just the way it is. But if you were around him long enough, you could figure out ways to sort of when were the right times to speak to him and when he might be a little bit more open. And he was an incredibly insightful guy. Obviously, he had gone through a lot of things in his own career to become what he was, and to be as great as he was took an incredible toll on him. But it was just watching that's the ultimate in professionalism that you'll ever encounter in this sport. And it was really a privilege to watch it every 5 days.
And I got to ask you, what was it like to cover the Texas Rangers Toronto Blue Jays playoff series? It became sort of a playoff rivalry with the Rugi stuff and the Batista and the bat flips and all that. What was that like?
I mean, those series, the 15 series was just tremendous baseball, right? It was such a high level, so competitive, two teams who ended up with an intense dislike of one another. It was great. And I didn't like what happened to the brawl not the next year. I just thought, two teams don't like each other, fine, but I thought the whole debate over the bat flip really robbed what was a spectacular moment, and took it and made it just created the wrong narrative around that. That was an incredible baseball moment, and if you can't celebrate that moment, then nothing in this sport can be celebrated. So that's the one thing about it that I didn't enjoy, and I thought the Blue Jays maybe got some just revenge in the series in 16, able to sweep that series the way they did.
For sure. And I did want to ask you about some Jays prospects. So Gabriel Moreno, who else should baseball fans be on the lookout for, and what do you think of just the farm system right now? Actually, too, I did want to ask you, I'll ask that next, but...
Okay. So, I mean, Gabriel Moreno, a super interesting prospect, at his first touch of the big leagues this year, he got a little bit of playing time, and transitioning as a catcher, incredibly difficult. But you see the athleticism, you see the contact ability, you see the strike zone control, you're like, this could be a real impact offensive player. And he's one of the best throwing catchers I've ever seen already. That's only going to get better. There's been a lot of emphasis with him on pitch calling and trying to understand the game, and that's one of those things where you can't really fast track it, and you just have to get through it. Another name, prospect who's really leaped forward this year is a left-handed pitcher, Ricky Tiedeman, who really a remarkable story. Is beginning of the year, he's an A-ball, and he's just dominating at every level. He basically got drafted at 21, ends up in the Blue Jays complex, figuring out some pitches, working on some mechanics, really changing his workout routine, his eating, everything that he does, and suddenly pops and is throwing 98 with a wipeout slider and a good changeup too. So he got all the way up to Double-A, shut down because of an innings limit, but he's going to be a guy who's going to be in the conversation for the Blue Jays in 2023. I
like that. And there's a guy I wanted to ask you about who I haven't heard a lot of things about in a while is Nate Pearson. I know Alek Manoah is kind of taken over for what maybe the Jays thought Nate Pearson was. What's going on with Nate, and what is his kind of organizational outlook right now?
So he's right now at AAA, finishing off a rehab assignment, and he just has had an incredibly star-crossed period where it's just been one injury after another, and he has had a tough time staying on the mound, and that's really stunted his development, and it's been incredibly hard to watch for someone as talented as he is, because he's absolutely electric when he's on, but he's been working as a reliever just because there isn't enough runway right now, and the Blue Jays want to see if they can get him into back-to-back outings, and he could potentially be a factor for them this year. But the way the horizon looks, and he's gonna need an opportunity to open up for him, which may not come in time this year. So he might really not factor for this team until 2023 at this point.
I like that. And I'll get you out of here on a fun one, actually. So, your personal pick for the greatest baseball movie of all time?
Ooh, so I'm a big fan of Major League. I feel it's cliche to say Field of Dreams, so I'm going to go Bull Durham, because I think Bull Durham is, in so many ways, really true to the personalities and the tenor and the routine of the game, and a lot of really fun stuff. I just thought it was a really accurate picture that they painted. Obviously, a lot of great one-liners and moments in that movie, but I just thought it captured the spirit of the minor league experience in a really authentic and genuine way.
I love that. All right, Shaw, I really appreciate the time. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure.